A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, just waiting.
It's lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Sebastian Vettel. Wing up the inside. McLaughlin gets it to space. They run, but the Red Bull Racing man has got through. The champion's done the job. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tander's off. McLaughlin's off. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Well, from the sunny sands of Brazil several weeks ago to the land of fish, chips and cups of tea in our second round in as many weeks for the Formula 3 series for Automobilista Australia. Welcome everybody to round 3. We are your ARW and AMS Australia broadcast team. My name's Nether, and welcoming into the commentary box for tonight's series of 2 races, Bagsy from the ARW team and Brock Harvey from AMS Australia. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks.
How you doing, mate?
Doing well, doing well. So, as I said, we're here, Brands Hatch, in the southernmost point of England. We've got 2 25-lap races here tonight, gentlemen. It's a bit of a change from the norm. We've had a couple of 15-lap sprints in the last couple of weeks, and now we have some 25-lappers, but the layout of the circuit pretty much does explain why they are 25 laps. There it is on your screen, and this place is a little bull ring.
Yeah, it's quite the small track. I was surprised when I heard we were doing the Indy version of Brands Hatch, because it is a fairly simple track. It's the first tracks that you raced back in the old V8 Supercar Race Driver games. It's a very quick track, not the old F1 layout that is more often used for races like this. So it'll be very fast laps and very quick races. Well,
we're already seeing some lap times in the closing in on about 41 seconds. So that's why I think we needed to, otherwise we'd have such a short race. Otherwise, with only 15 laps, it'd be gone before you knew it.
Yeah, it'd be blinking and you miss it. But yeah, we chose this circuit, Brands Hatch being the home of F3 in Britain, and they generally use this one. So thought, why not? Let's throw it around here as well. Alan Jones actually won an F3 championship around this track, so
he did.
We're sticking to the Australian legacy here.
Well, he did. And well, speaking of Australians, and obviously the majority of the guys in this this series are Australians, let's have a look at the point standings, if we bring them up on the board there. So the points leader is Heath Dixon coming into tonight's race, and he's had a couple of good results. He did the double-double in round 1 in Santa Cruz in Brazil, and he backed it up with the 3rd and the 4th place at the last round. So he's still the points leader. From Corey Ott and Greg Nangle, very close. Baker and Lewis Wedding doing quite well as well. Lewis Wedding actually having done the double-double at Northamptonshire, or what was that? It's Silverstone 2 weeks ago, with both the pole and the race win on both occasions. He's tied with Matt Schwass, and then we've got Johnny Luke, Grant English and David Keane rounding out the top 10. Now, we'll cross back over just to the server in a second just to see how things are going, but just on the back end of practice there, has Lewis Wedding managed to get himself sorted, gentlemen, or has he still got a few dramas? Because he did report some technical issues.
It looks like he's back underway. He's currently got the 2nd fastest time, only 1 second behind Greg Nangle, who is a long way ahead at the moment. He's the only man in the 42s. He's actually, funnily enough, Wedding and Dixon have the exact same lap time. They both set a 43.235. Wedding set it first, so he is ahead of Heath Dixon at the moment. But literally nothing between 2nd and 3rd place drivers.
Well, before we cut over, sorry to cut you off, Brock. Before we cut over to the server, we'll just have a quick look at the calendar. So here's your calendar. There we are, round 3, May the 6th, Brands Hatch in England. And we've got a couple of rounds to go. We've got Laguna Seca, Albert Park, and believe this is a typo. It should be June 17, not July 17, for the finale at Phillip Island. So a very short series, but not too far away and from completing. And we'll flick over now into. Oh, that's a bit of a mishap there, but we'll quickly flick over now into the live server and we'll have a look at what's going on. So, well, here's Greg Nangle. We've just cut to him at the right opportunity. He's gone to the top with a 42.0. So we're getting close to the 41s.
Yeah, absolutely. Qualifying's actually started. We did a 20-minute qualifying session just because there was some technical issues earlier. So, in order to, would have just wrecked the crossover from practice to qualifying. So qualifying was extended by 5 minutes just to give the guys a bit more time on the new tyre rule. But yeah, looks like the fucking our team are off to a flyer. They're 1-2 at the moment.
They are.
I was going to say earlier, I'm kind of interested in this one because we have only one Pro A driver in this grid, and that's Lewis. The rest of them all Pro B. And these things are a completely different beast to what we drive in just about everything else. So we're seeing the Pro B guys take it up to the Pro A guy at the moment.
Was Heath Dixon not also Pro A, or has he dropped down to Pro B?
Just with a bit of a change to Calc Pro B, he's moved down to Pro B now as well.
Fair enough.
Well, speaking of Heath Dixon, he is the points leader, and here he is just coming through the pit lane, having left his box, so he'll be coming out to try and set himself another lap time. So he's currently on a 42.9 for his first foray in qualifying. That's much, much too low. He's definitely got something more left in. There's a bit of smoke there as well as he leaves the pit lane, so that's a bit interesting. I'm not sure if he's trying to heat the brakes up or something, but a bit of a cloud of smoke as he left the lane. And here he is going through turn number 1 on his outlap.
So Heath Dixon, he's 6th at the moment. He'll want to be higher, but he doesn't need to find much time to jump up a few positions. 4th place is only 0.02 of a second ahead of him, and it's only 2 more tenths up to Wedding in 3rd. That deadlock's finally been broken between those two. But interesting, we've got a couple of people in here who you wouldn't expect. Our stats man Stairs is decided to participate today. He's qualified 9th, although it looks like he has decided he won't. He's left the server, so I think he may have decided he's just going to run the stats today. He doesn't have the pace to keep up.
Well, he loves an open wheeler, that boy. I mean, he's good in the GT3, and he's an excellent commentator in the Super Series and the Supercars series. But as much as he loves an open wheeler, probably thought, no, I think I'll avoid disrupting somebody's race tonight, and I'll stick to the statistics as Heath spins across the grass at turn 3 and retreats back to the garage.
Just getting words that go ahead.
Oh, shout out to Luke at the moment. 12 minutes to go in the session. Sitting 4th for a Pro-Am driver. He's pulled one out.
Yeah, he has. He's up in the garage at the moment. He's someone we've been quietly keeping an eye on since the F3s started. He seems to have gotten better and better every week, if I'm not mistaken. We have a look at his current point standings. His first result was a 10th place in race 1 of round 1 at Santa Cruz, and then he's had 3 8th place finishes in the last 3 races over the last 2 rounds. So just solidly building his own little points haul there. He's currently on 30 points. He's the 8th place man in the standings. But 4th, an excellent result.
We've just had Johnny join the server. He's currently 7th. He wasn't here for the last round in Silverstone, but in the round he was here, the first race we had at Santa Cruz, he came 2nd in both races, following behind Heath Dixon. So while he's here late, if he's able to get his eye in, he will definitely be a contender for the front of the field.
He's still got plenty of time.
He's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, love the look of this car too, gents. There's a black and sort of like a highlighter blue, I'd like to call it, livery. It stands out. You can see it coming from a mile away. So if he's up somebody's chuff, they won't miss him in their rearview mirrors.
Lucky number 13 as well, eh?
Yeah, lucky number 13. Oh, and what do we call that, gentlemen? We call that
Commentator's curse.
Commentator's curse. There we go. There we go. All right, we'll heap praise on people. Let's curtail the praise for tonight, and we'll see how we go. Well, they call this gentleman the Professor, and he's on screen at the moment, and he's at the top of the standings, very, very Professor-like, and always looking to try and improve. And as someone there spins off at McLaren and Clearways corners, we will give you a quick rundown on the corners as we go. It's only 7 corners. But as the Professor comes to the line, we'll have a look at this T-cam shot above his head as he goes into turn number 1, which is called Paddock Hill Bend. And a little bit of elevation change here, and it's a very, very fast, not quite flat-out corner. Now the run up to Druids. Turn number 2, the 180-degree right-hander. Back down the hill to Graham Hill Bend left-hander in turn number 3. And now the Cooper straight on the run up to the left-hand turn. It's turn number 4, Surtees. Turns 5, which is McLaren, and turn 6, Clearways are here. It looks like it's one big long turn, but they actually classed as 3 separate turns, and then the last turn is Clark Curve, turn number 7. And as we said before, the lap is over and done within a very, very short space of time. That lap was over and done within 42.3 seconds. For Greg Nangle, that's not quite close enough to his current best time of 42.080.
2 tenths off there. It just seemed like he lost a bit of time in the last sector. All the other sectors were pretty much identical, but he lost 2 tenths in the final one. So probably due to the multitude of people who were spinning in front of him, probably caused him to lift off a little bit to avoid an accident.
I think he had to pass Johnny mid-corner, mid-Clark curve as well, so I think that would have affected him massively because it's a high downforce corner, and we know how suspect these cars are to downforce.
They are suspect to downforce also. They do get quite a good tow, unlike some of the other series that we race in, such as the Super Series, where you don't get much of a tow as Nangle improves his time and gets ever closer to dipping into the 41s. These cars will punch a hole in the air for a trailing car, and you can get a good slipstream, and the only real time opportunity we're expecting to see a passing manoeuvre done is into turn number 1, or potentially into turn number 4 if you're close enough out of 3. But Nangle's up 2 tenths here, gentlemen, and he's just dropped a little bit, but he's still a tenth and a half under his current time. If he can get a clean run out of the last couple of turns here and hold it to the inside, he might actually go into the 41s, and he does. He goes to the top at 41.99, just under the 41.9, so that's a very, very impressive time. Not quite the quickest time that we had seen across the practice weekend, which actually it is actually. It has just surpassed the mark done by Jamie Snow, which was a 41.990. So he's just nipped into that. Jamie Snow we haven't seen for a couple of weeks, unfortunately, and it's disappointing he's not here because he'd certainly give these front runners a run for their money.
Yeah, Jamie came in with a bang 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he's missed the last 3 or 4 races, I think, due to some work and some health issues that he's been having. I believe he had pneumonia, which is never easy to race.
That's certainly not good.
It's not ideal, no.
Well, the track appears to be starting to rubber in again because Nagle's just pumped in another time that's only 300ths off his PB, or the top time as well. So the track's starting to come to the Professor. And the man who's in second place, there he is on the screen there, the points leader, Heath Dixon, is currently almost 4 tenths away. But let's see what he can do, as we've got this lovely helicopter shot looking over Graham Hill Bend here. But Heath is still... Oh, that's a very, very bad miss. He got on the grass there as well. And he's actually been surpassed by Matt Williams as well. So we missed that. Matt Williams having gone up to second place... up to on a 42.2. Oh, as he tags, who's that? He tags. Is that Johnny?
That is Andy.
Andy. So he's tagged Andy without a rear wing. But Nangle's gone to the top with a 41.829. So he's lowered the benchmark again. He's now come across this little calamity at Druids Bend, and they get going. But at the moment, it is, and I do say this with very, very correct pronunciation, gentlemen. Far Canal Racing 1-2 at the moment, and there's been a bit of conjecture around some of the spelling and the pronunciation of that name. It is what it is. You will see it come up on the screen from time to time, but if we get the pronunciation right, we can't be accused of using profanities.
I can't help but feel that they intentionally named it so to try and trip us up. I mean, it might. Some people might say I am conspiratorial with this, but I do not believe that it was done with the best of intentions.
Knowing Matt Williams the way I know Matt Williams, I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah, well, he did say after the commentary at Silverstone, where I did call it, and I said to him, pronunciation. He said to me, made him laugh, and I said, well, pronunciation was everything. He said, even for the crappy night that he had that night, it made his night to know that I had actually said it. And I just said, look, pronunciation is everything, so, don't get too, happy about it, because I didn't cock up.
Fair enough.
Well, the points leader starts another lap, and he's charged towards pole, and his attempts to wrestle pole away from Greg Nangle. Currently just under 5.5 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. And Heath still struggling to match even his own PB time. He's still 2 tenths off. He's having a bit of trouble there with the third turn. Graham Hill Bend, he's just running a bit wide, and we've just seen this on some of the live GT4 races that have been run over in Britain at the moment. That's a number of cars had a lot of track limits issues with that turn number 3. It's a tricky sort of downhill braking turn to get right, and you run over the exit curb, you do lose quite a bit of time. Let's see how he tackles it this time around as we get this lovely shot from on high. Well, he's well wide of the apex there at turn number 1. That'll cost him a bit of time.
Didn't trouble the apex there. It's not what you want in a fast time, really. We'll see how he goes through the first sector, though. Is 2 tenths down his personal best and 4 tenths down on the fastest time that Angus says, and he's round, so that's definitely not going to be a fast lap for him.
And that's the spot we were talking about just there. That exit of Graham Hill Bend, turn number 3, getting out there on the AstroTurf and the Ripple Strip. If you get out there too much, you run the risk of just absolutely looping the car. So they want to be careful of that. But this is qualifying, and they're all pushing the limits.
4 minutes left as well, mate. So we're starting. This is happy hour. We're starting to see some guys really push now.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the race goes because, as we've seen in the F3 series, the first round, Heathy with two wins, basically due to many people spinning in front of him. You just get the feeling that he might be in for a good shot at another race win or 2 here if everyone else spins, because people are pushing quite a bit, and there's every chance that people will go around and even take other people out.
That is true. We did comment on that particular round, and we did think it was very, very lucky of him to get the 2 race wins that he did. He did an absolute stellar job both qualifying sessions, but in both races he got an absolute dead set shocker from pole position and was swamped by, I think it was Jamie Snow on race number 1. And then he got swamped by about 4 or 5 cars in race number 2, and he really had to fight to earn his keep. And he got lucky and got there by pure attrition, but he was the most consistent out of the lot, just kept his head level and got the results. But since then, he's had the gauntlet thrown down to him.
Looks like Greg Nangle's struggling to match his pace of before, 6 tenths down this lap. And you can still see lots of people spinning as well. It's definitely seems to be tricky conditions once you really get on the edge, and lots of people having some significant issues.
Yeah, we're not seeing too many guys being able to set any really quick laps the later it gets in this session. The timing screens are not being lit up.
Just jumped up to second. He beat his personal best by 2 tenths of a second.
Yeah,
he's still 3 tenths down on the top time of Nangle, but he's definitely thrown down the gauntlet to Matt Williams and split the Farcanal Racing crew.
He has split the dominant front row lockout at this stage, unless Matt wants to get out there and have another crack. But the points leader will now start at this stage provisionally on the front row, as long as he can keep it together, and he probably needs to press on here. Need to get another 2 laps in if the tyres will give it to him. Actually, where is Matt Williams in all of this? So Matt's on an outlap, so Matt's realised that he's no longer sitting there in second place and he needs to get a wriggle on. We were talking a little bit earlier, gentlemen, about Lewis Wedding, who was the man who dominated the last race in Silverstone, and he's vanished off the server as well. So I'm wondering if he's still got some of those technical issues. And Matt Williams has parked it in the garage, so I don't know if he's actually going to come out and have another crack at this or not. But he's fast running it. Oh, here he goes. He's coming out now, so he's only going to get probably 1 more flying lap at this.
He's had an issue with Andy, who I believe is a newcomer to the series, and he's been getting in the way of some people, unfortunately, which hopefully he'll learn to check his mirrors a bit more, because it could cause some issues in the race, especially at the moment. Nangle's coming up behind him on a final fast lap attempt.
Yeah, we've got 2 gentlemen in the server tonight who are newies to this series. We've got Brendan Ross and we've got Andy, and they're both quite some substantial distance off the pace at the moment. So, but obviously, being new to the series, welcome, gents, and just try and keep it clean and don't be too overzealous or too opportunistic in your first race. Just to finish first, you must finish. So that's all you've got to learn to start with until you start to find your feet. Well, Matt Williams is going to get across the line. He's only going to get 1 more flying lap, and here he is. And he's following that Nigel Mansell-inspired F3 livery ahead. Now, who's that gentleman? Who's in that car there? Because that looks absolutely stunning.
That is Rob Dunt, I believe. He's also new to the series.
Sorry to interrupt. Heath has just gone to the top of the timetables.
He
1/10
has.
ahead of Nangle with a 41.7, which is a brilliant time. He was right on the edge all the way through that lap, and it was a very well put together lap.
So we have missed that, but Matt Williams we are watching at the moment, but we didn't quite see Heath. He's somehow managed to find a time when it counted, and Matt Williams came into the line here. And this stage he's not going to improve on his current grid slot. He'll settle for third place at this point in time as we look through the field to see if anybody else is on a lap. Here's Aussie, so he's looking to set a lap time, and he's only 2600ths off his PB, currently down in 9th, and he needs to find a lot more time than that to see if he can vault himself up the order. But at this stage I think he's going to be starting 9th, and he will start 9th. Didn't improve his time that time around. Andy on track at the moment, but time has expired and he won't be in a position to set another time.
I
But
believe he's on a lap at the moment still.
yep, not now. He's not. There he
he's
goes.
No longer on a lap.
So that's it. Well, your pole sitter is your points leader, and it's Heath Dixon currently starting from the pole, and alongside him is going to be the man they call the Professor, Greg Nangle. So hopefully that should be a rather entertaining battle. They're only separated by just over 1/10 of a second in the qualifying standings, and anything is possible, gentlemen.
Yeah, it was quite a good run from Heathy. Nangle will be very annoyed because he was pipped at the last second by Heath Dixon. He'll be very, very, very unhappy in that race helmet. You can probably see the steam rising off it because he was the commanding leader through practice and qualifying, but it's where you are at the end of the session that counts.
He led that session for the majority of it, Greg Nangle, and just could not. We saw it. He was struggling just to try and match his best time, or even get close to his best time once he'd laid it down. But I think quite a lot of guys were struggling to get their best times later in the session, and just a simple case of Heath hooked up when it mattered most.
I have a feeling that Greg might have made a quick change to the setup, and then he might have, to use a Mark Scafism, tuned it till it stopped. So he's almost tuned it too far the other way, and it caused him a bit of issues on the gripped up circuit. I don't think Greg will mind being second as long as he's on the front row, because he does look after the car, and he's a pretty consistent racer. So I don't think he's going to have too many issues giving up pole there to Heath.
And that probably explains as well why a number of the guys were on, several or multi-lap runs during that qualifying session as well. And granted, it's a short circuit too, but they were also, doing 4 or 5 or 6 laps continuously on the same set of tyres and trying to set their time. Especially Greg, if he was tuning that car, he probably wanted to see what the balance was going to be like, or what those changes he'd made, to see if it was actually worth continuing or reverting it before going out again.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Just going through warm-up here, doesn't look like anyone's left doing any laps at the moment. Everyone's just chilling out in the pits with 4 minutes remaining. So we will see if anyone goes out to sort of get a feel for the track before they actually race on it.
well, at this point in time, it doesn't look like anybody is currently going to come out onto track. So in the midst of, or the absence of some on-track activity, we will just cut to a small ad break, and we will be back very, very shortly.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. We're just waiting.
It's lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Sebastian Vettel. Wink up on the inside. McLaughlin gets it to They run, but the Red Bull Racing man has got through. The champion's done the job. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tander's off. McLaughlin's off. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
And after that short ad break, welcome back to Brands Hatch, everybody. We've got just over 2 minutes remaining in this little warm-up session. We have seen a few cars decide to take to the track. We can hear some engines. And there's a welcome sight, gentlemen, Lewis Wedding. He had some mechanical dramas and was unable to take part in qualifying. So given the fact he's made it back to the server, he's unfortunately going to have to start from the rear of the grid. But I don't think that's going to cause him too many troubles.
I think he said did he set a time during qualifying at the start though? So he might be further up the field, if I'm not mistaken.
He may have. We cut to the broadcast just before or just after he'd exited the server. So I don't know if he'd set a representative time or not. But at this stage, he's still reporting as 13th and last because the order of the live timing is still showing everybody in the order that they qualified. So I dare say he probably didn't set a time, but we'll soon find out if he did when the session goes over to the formation lap.
I was of the belief with Bagsy that he had done a time that was probably quick enough for about 5th or 6th. So it'll be interesting to see how this lines up once we do take the grid, because yeah, you're right, he is reporting as 13th at the moment.
Well, he's got that beautiful white, yellow and red, white, green and red, geez, I'm going colourblind, Castrol livery, and he's currently going in and out of the garage, probably just trying to find a little sweet spot with that setup, given he's lost so much track time. This is the car that I was talking about before qualifying ended, and you are right, gentlemen, it is Rob Dunt, who's got this wonderful looking Nigel Mansell tribute livery. All it's missing is the number 5 on the front of the car, but it's number 12 for Rob Dunt. So I actually do like that car.
There is also no tremendous moustache when you take off that helmet either, sadly.
No handlebar moustache or what did Nigel Mansell didn't have a handlebar moustache. He had a a straight moustache.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we're hearing that Lewis Wedding is still having throttle pedal issues. He's got Fanatic throttle pedals, and they seem to be known for having some mild issues occasionally. He's been using them all day with no issue apparently, so this is the worst possible time for him to have these issues as the time in warm-up expires.
Well, that explains why he's been going out onto the circuit, and that's why he explains why the car is looping around quite a fair bit, because he's probably trying to test that throttle pedal issue. He did say he was having a bit of a sticking problem. And actually, Brock, you are correct. It shows Lewis Wedding as 5th now. Just a few seconds ago before we cut away. There it is on your screen. He did set a time good enough for 5th. The question is whether or not he'll be in a position where he can take the start.
Well, this is it's pretty sensational, really, for this series. Lewis is the top-ranked driver in AMS Oz for the Formula 3 races at the moment. So him not making the grid, it opens it up to the other guys. So you got Dixon, Nangle, Williams, all Group B, Schwash Group B, Johnny Group B, and then the rest of the guys are Pro-Am. So suddenly this closes up the grid a lot.
We're hearing that he's going to try and battle through the problem and see if he can drive around it, but he'll definitely be compromised, and hopefully he has no issues off the grid.
Well, there's our camera, and you can just see there's the run down to turn number 1, and as we pan down here, you can see here is your grid. Looking back further, it's a bit of a staggered grid. I'm sorry for my poor shaky camera work, but we will inevitably go live here as race number 1 grid starts its formation lap. Bagsy, you want to take us through the order, please?
Sure. First up on pole, pipping Greg Nangle at this post is Heath Dixon, who is our current championship leader. Second place, Greg Nangle, who will be infuriated and hoping to grab Heath on the first lap. Matt Williams with a strong performance, the second of the Far Canal Racing crew.
Thank you.
Luke in the Luke branded car. It's quite a nice little car there. Is in 4th, and in a good performance him, top Pro-Am driver. Lewis Wedding in 5th with those throttle issues. Keep a close eye on him. 6th is Matt Schwass. 7th is Johnny, who is the podium sitter in the first round. 8th is David Keane. 9th is Rob Dunt in that excellent Mansell throwback livery. Aussie is in 10th. Brendan Ross appears to have missed the start, so
he's in the pit lane.
And Voda in 12th, and rounding out the field is Andy, the newcomer.
Andy borrowing the I Rambo livery there. So if you're watching Rambo,
sorry, it looks like Heath has gone past his start box.
Oh, he has
by a very long way.
He is actually. What the hell happened there?
I'm not sure how if he reverses a bit too far, he'll get disqualified.
Oh dear. So you're not paying attention. So we've seen this before. He's a bit frazzled, Heath. So with a bit of luck, he's not been penalised for that. But the problem is with our cameras here, we haven't got much of a. We haven't got much of a look at the lights. Let's have a look. We might see if we can pan up to the lights and see if we can get a thing. There we are. There's our lights up there. And there's our pole sitter. Is he in the right spot?
I believe
Here we go.
Here we go.
The lights are going. He's rolling backwards a bit, Heath, and he gets an all right start, but Nangle got a better one, and so did Matt Williams, and they're swamping him. They've got him either side on the run down into turn number 1, but he manages to prevail, but he had a very, very poor initial getaway, but somehow he manages to hold off those pair of orange and blue cars. And up the inside, who's that going up the inside of him? Is that Nangle or is that Williams? No, that's Williams. So Williams has gotten past his teammate, and he's immediately threatening the pole sitter here on lap 1. We've got a Luke going across the grass.
Run wide in the background. He's dropped several positions there. It was a brilliant start from Nangle, but he just couldn't quite get it.
Oh, and Heath's around. The race leader's around. So he's around at the between Clearways and Clark Curve, and that's a horrible, horrible mistake. We also cut to the fact that Lewis Wedding's gone and parked himself in a garage, and he's struggling to get going there. Heath Dixon, we're not sure what's going on here. We haven't got server issues. Thank goodness for that. But it's Afar Canal Racing 1-2 at the moment at the head of the field. Heath Dixon's managed to get himself going again. He's come back onto the track in 9th, gentlemen. What a horrible opening lap for Heath Dixon.
That's not going well for him.
He's also got issues at the start. He's lost his rear wing.
Yeah, there he is. He's just on the infield on the back straight, and they're already getting down to business. These two. Just giving a bit of a nudge. The professor just gave his teammate a little bit of a nudge wide, and he sails through on the inside of Clearways and Clark Curve. And Matt Williams probably won't be very happy with that. But Greg Nangle is through and into the lead on lap 2, and the field's already starting to string out.
Just having a look, Wedding has been trying to get his issue fixed, but it looks like he has retired and will not be continuing.
He's spun again, guys.
So he has spun again according to our timing screens, and it's up at the same sort of section of the where he was. Where is he here? And there's Andy's across the road as well. Yeah, that's a horrible lap for Heath. That's a 50-second lap, so he's had some sort of trouble again. I can't understand what he's done. Has he made a setup change between sessions? I mean, surely not. Surely he would have just stuck with what worked.
He's having issues with Clark Curve at the moment. That's been his nemesis twice now.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on him for this lap, and we'll see if he does it again. He's tackling the turn 3 curve much, much better than he was in qualifying this time around. He's going to have to pray for a safety car, but in such a small field, I don't think it's going to happen. No, he's much, much, much better on the turn that time, and maybe just getting very, very close to the ripple strip there. But this will be a much better lap. But as you can see from your timing screens there, he's got some 10.5 seconds to make up on Voda before he even gets in sight of getting hold of 8th place. And we've already lost. There's Andy. So Andy is one of the newcomers, and he's just struggling around as well. And Matt Schwass, having made a pit stop to replace, was it his rear wing that he lost, was it?
Yeah, he lost his rear wing.
Yep, and he's now got blue flags as well.
Directly in front of the leaders.
Yep.
As we see Andy is rounded again. It's a bit of a baptism of fire, this one, because he's gone into arguably the hardest cars that we race to drive. They require a deft touch, that's for sure. So hopefully he is able to master the car and not get in anyone's way along the way.
Well, in your shot there, Greg Nangle has a 1.5 second lead over his teammate, Matt Williams. It's a 1-2 for that team at the moment. Sadly, there's no teams championships, but they like to be in the same colours, and they head the field at the moment as Nangle comes to the line here and sets a lap of a 42.6 that time around, so his best is a 42.3, and he continues to press on. I mean, we're already into lap 6, so that's to give you an idea of why we've gone up to 25 laps this race and for the next race as opposed to 15.
Oh,
they are over in a flash.
Third place Johnny is round.
There he is. He's done a 360 and he's managed to keep it going. We probably should have a look at the replay there if we can. And here he is on the replay coming down into turn number 1. Let's see if we can get a look at what happened. And he did it all on his own and just got on the curb there. And did he manage to keep it out of the wall? Maybe just. Just managing to avoid David Keane there, who's shot through on the inside. So,
story of this race so far: David Keane, with that skillful dodge of Johnny there, is now up to 3rd place from 8th on the grid. He's up 5 places already, so he's almost gained a position a lap at this race. He's going quite well.
He is going very, very well, and very, very smartly avoided Johnny coming back onto the track on that little spin on lap number 6. And that'd be a nice little haul of points for him if he continues to get along from where he is, because from the standings he was the 10th placed man, and his best result was at 2 9th place finishes in race 2 of both Brazil and Silverstone, or Santa Cruz and Silverstone. And as we say that, has a half spin, and he lets Johnny back through, doesn't fully quite loop the car, and he actually lets through, Rob Dunt's gone through as well to 4th. So Dave, no matter, the sooner we start talking about him, and he inevitably makes a moz of it.
So unfortunately, also Brendan Ross has retired, sadly, in the newcomer to the series. I believe he spun.
There's a Johnny's looped himself around again. So we're just we're just watching Rob Dunt coming through.
Oh, he's crashed into Aussie.
Oh dear, oh dear! And there's been a massive crash, and Aussie's lost a rear wing. And oh my goodness gracious me, that's going to be something we have to go back and have a look at the replay of as well. So this is Aussie. We're watching him come down the main straight. Now by this time Johnny's already having another issue coming out of the first turn. And as Aussie comes around, let's see what happened. And well, here we go. And in the middle of the track, and just tried to avoid it. So he tried to do the same thing that David Keane did and go to the inside of the circuit, but just Johnny shot straight at forward ahead and just couldn't avoid it. So that is a horrible result. And Aussie's got no front wing and no rear wing. Aussie spun as well. Sorry, Aussie spun. Johnny spun as well, and Aussie just managed to get it back into the pits. So, and Johnny's actually stationary on the track, and that's a very, very dangerous position. As you see, a couple of guys trying to take to the course.
Nangle just had a very close call with Johnny there. He almost had a massive crash into him in the final corner.
Yeah, and we were watching Johnny on the track as he tried to spin around and get done there. So, oh my goodness gracious me! All action going up and down the field.
I've got to say though, I think that incident with Aussie and Johnny is entirely on Johnny, because Aussie was right there and Johnny just basically lit up his tyres to try and get back round straight into him. Didn't really have much regard for what was coming his way.
Yeah, he probably thought he was going one way and instead he went the other and inevitably caused a collision, and I think there'll be a trip to the steward's room after that, because that certainly was not very, very nice to see.
Back down the field, Heath Dixon, after his horrible start, is up to 6th. Just due to the sheer attrition of the race so far, as Johnny has a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, compound matters for Johnny, so that'll be a pit lane speeding infringement. That is surely up for that.
Heathy is all over the back of Luke, who is now up to 5th, or say he's down to 5th, but he's gone up and down as well, just like Heathy has. But Heathy is certainly monstering the back of him, applying as much pressure as he can. Well,
certainly valuable points for the current points leader now. Any points that he can get as a result of the attrition will be very, very welcome news to him, given how poorly he started this race. And he's eyeing off 5th at the moment in the form of Luke. And I want to give him a bit of a shout out too to Rob Dunt. So he's moved up 6 positions. He is one of the biggest movers on the field at the minute. David Keane had 5 until his little spin, so he's moved up 4. But one of the newest. Oh, and also, what's that? It says 1 second stop-go penalty for Johnny. So I'm not sure if that's a typo, but surely you can't have that means you come into your pit box, you literally stop, and then you get going again. So maybe something else has gone on as a result of his indiscretions, but we'll soon find out. But now back to this Nigel Mansell-inspired car. Rob Dunt's doing a very fine job at the moment, keeping his nose clean.
Just to cut across you there, now that Johnny's been given a stop-go for a unsafe re-entry. With his incident with Aussie.
Ooh, okay, so not only has he been penalised for it, there will most likely be a trip to the steward's room afterwards as well. So hopefully he can clean his act up for race number 2.
It's unfortunate, although a 1 second stop-go penalty, I'm not sure if it was a typo or not when the stewards were sending the message, but I'm sure the stewards in their infinite wisdom know what they are wanting to penalise.
Yeah. Well, just looking at Greg Nangle here, he's just quietly eking out 5 to 5.6 seconds his advantage. He's just applying his pressure every couple of seconds, every couple of laps. He just ekes out a couple of tenths, and he continues to push on. So he's doing quite well. Heath Dixon's has been lighting up the timing screens as well, so he's pushing on with it. But he's also dropped a bit further away from Luke than expected. So has he made another mistake somewhere, gents? Because he was right under Luke's rear wing before, and now he's dropped to be about 3.5 seconds away.
Yeah, unless Luke has set an absolutely stellar time, it seems like he may have made a mistake somewhere further back. Let's have a look at his... he did 48. He had a 48-second previous lap, so he definitely made a mistake somewhere along there, and that's what's caused him to drop back. But he is on the pace of the leaders now.
The Far Canal guys have absolutely checked out at the moment. They could cruise home and just protect each other from here, I reckon, and finish quite a healthy one with quite a healthy 1-2.
They could.
Well, Matt Schwartz has spun again at the final corner and lost his rear wing yet again. Not a good race for him so far. I believe he is about 4 laps down at this point.
He's currently 4 laps down the race leader, classified in 10th. So we've got a number of cars that are not on the lead lap. The last of them is Aussie, who's 1 lap down. So everyone from 1st down to 7th is currently on the lead lap. The last man on the lead lap is actually Voda. So here he is on screen and doing quite a nice job, gentlemen. He's keeping it clean. He's actually moved up 5 positions as a result of the attrition, and it's the first time we've actually been able to praise him, because in the past we haven't actually had much to say about him. But he's getting better and better, and that's the good thing about this series, is if you continue to be consistent and you continue to apply yourself and just
Sorry, we
drive with how confident you are.
Just had a very close incident between Andy and I believe it was David Keane. It was almost a very large accident. Andy, having lost his rear wing, is struggling to get around the track.
Well, David Keane is here, and you can see on that his last lap was a 44.1, so obviously just having to slow down to take a little bit of avoiding action.
Sorry, Matt Williams and Andy came oh so perilously close to ending Matt Williams' race.
Well, we'll go back and we'll have a look at the replay of that as well if we can. So here is
Williams in that car, that Rambo car. And
well, there was the wing. We just saw the wing on the exit of, I think it was turn number 3, as we're watching Matt Williams on the replay here. Then there he is. Oh my goodness gracious me. That is extremely close, and we see exactly what we mean. And as Matt Schwartz gets a drive-through penalty for some little indiscretion, I'm assuming he's been in to repair a rear wing, and no doubt has been pinged for speeding.
I don't think Andy... Oh no, that's such a shame for Joe. I don't think Andy realizes he doesn't have a rear wing or front wing now. He's posing a risk to himself and others. As we hear that Heathy has spun again, this is a race of attrition for sure.
Well, he must have spun again, because he's... Look how far behind 5th place he is now, gents. He's like 12, 13 seconds behind. He appears like he's having a bit of a handful with that car as well in some turns, especially turn number 1. He had quite a substantial wiggle there. So I don't know whether he's just getting on the loud pedal a little bit too soon, or whether he's just having a hard time, keeping on the blacktop. But he's struggling.
You get the feeling he's tuned it for qualifying and is now just not quite able to.
Oh, and there's Andy again as Heath Dixon goes through. And I just saw something out of the corner of my eye, gentlemen. Heath is about to get the blue flags for Greg Nangle. And I didn't think we'd be saying that at the start of the night.
I just had a look at the Johnny incident. He had a massive incident at Paddock Hill Bend.
And there's Heath pulling over. Sorry to cut you off, Brock. Heath pulls over to let the race leader through. So please continue.
Oh yeah, Johnny had a serious off at Paddock Hill Bend, and just destroyed the suspension. So race 1 done for him, and hopefully he can come out, have a decent qualifying, and get some points in race 2.
Yes, we hope he'll be able to get back into the thick of things, and obviously Lewis Wedding still looking to try and get those technical gremlins sorted. He's parked up in the pit lane as well. Hopefully he'll be back in town for race number 2, or qualifying 2 and race number 2. But what can we say about Heath, gentlemen? He's had a shocker. He's got about 7 laps remaining, and he just needs to bring it home. He does get points for 6th position, but I think 5th is a far gone conclusion unless Luke or any of the guys ahead really have some sort of calamity. But I think he just needs to come and back some points.
we are seeing the tyres start to fade a bit, so other people may start having issues. And there's also always having, because it's such a short track, having to deal with lap traffic is always a potential issue as well.
Although speaking of tyres, we just had a quick flick to Rob Dunt, and he actually just set his quickest lap time that lap around, lap 19, and his best lap as well. So obviously if tyres are a factor, he's probably one that's looking after him and just pacing himself. And we've spoken about this in some of the series before, that some of the tyre, or the tracks where we expect the tyre wear to be quite high, just don't go full out. Just pace yourself and let the race come to you, and you'll have better tyres toward the end of it, especially if the guys ahead have pushed very, very hard and run out of tyres, and you might be able to sail through or pick up a position here or there. As Rob Dunt coming to the line again here, and as you see there, his best time was a 43.4 the last lap on his second last lap, but his last lap around was a 43.6, so going along quite consistently there, and consistency is what you need in these cars.
He's definitely got the best tyres of the people around him at the moment. He's looked after them very well, and he almost just slightly better than David Keane, who is about 2 seconds behind him. So it could be quite close at the end of this race. If neither can afford to make a mistake if they want the podium.
Well, Keenan, we just got word that we've been keeping an eye on this as well. David Keane's trying to close in on Rob Dunt here, but he's not able to make any significant enough inroads. They're lapping at about the same pace, and that's from our pit reporter on the ground stairs, who's keeping an eye on things and been down to the pit garages. And you can see the gap on there. It's just hovering around the 2.1 second mark. And there's 4 laps to go, including the one that we are currently on. But Rob Dunt looking very, very good for a maiden podium in race number 1 here at Brands Hatch, and that'd be a massive feather in his cap and a reward for his consistency.
Yeah, it would definitely. He's raced almost the perfect race so far, but I hesitate to praise him too much because we've seen what happens to people we praise too much throughout this race. Although I get the feeling with the amount of spins, it can't all be blamed on us.
No, it certainly cannot, and some guys just don't seem to, the mozzes that we seem to put on them just are like water off a duck's back. They just continue to go on about their business, and this man's been doing exactly that as he rounds Druids Bend, turn number 2, and heads down the hill again. And we haven't probably been paying enough attention to what's been going on out front, but here's Matt Williams as he comes across the line to commence lap number 24, so the penultimate lap. But look how far behind his teammate is. He's some 14 seconds behind his teammate, and his teammate's just on the back straight here, and he's getting close to putting Luke 1 lap down, as we've got a local yellow flag there for some sort of indiscretion. Looks like that's is that Andy again, Andy touring the inside of the field, so he's had quite a shocker as well. But the Professor, here he comes to the line. Got a massive lead.
In front of Matty Williams. Sorry, it was in front of Aussie. Orange cars everywhere. He was coming back onto the track and spun it, and he looped it right in front of Aussie. So Aussie's had a nightmarish day of not his own doing.
Yeah, not through his own fault.
Brock, knowing Matt Williams fairly well, how do you think he'll feel being essentially the number 2 driver by a fair margin this race?
I don't think there's any shame in being number 2 to Greg. So I don't think he'll be too disappointed with it, because Greg has been quick since we started AMS Australia, and Matt is still relatively new to Automobilista, so I think he'll be learning a bit from Greg, especially for the sharing setups. I don't see it really being a big problem for him.
Well, speaking of Greg, he's crossed the line first, and in a time of 17 and nearly just under 18 minutes that race took, so that goes to show you why we extended it to 25 laps. But here's Matt Williams, so a 1-2 for Far Canal Racing, and Matt will be very, very pleased to be on the podium there. And this man, as we watch him come through the last couple of turns, on debut as Andy spins off the circuit again in the series and up 6 positions, the biggest mover on the grid, comes down to the line. Rob Dunt, well done on a maiden podium in Formula 3 AMS Australia, and holding off David Keane, who closed that gap down to 1.5 seconds but just ran out of laps. So good result for Dave Keane as well, up 4 positions.
5th for Luke with a very good run, and Heath Dixon has picked up 6th. Voda managed 7th, and Aussie has gotten 8th.
And
last of the classified finishes.
last of the classified finishers, the remainder of them are all DNFs. Now, Brock, you probably might need to fill us in on this. The guys who have DNF'd, are they still awarded points if they are have to completed a certain percentage of the distance, or are they excluded from the points results?
In Formula 3, we follow the CAM's Formula 4 regulations, and that is no points for DNF, even if you stop on lap 24 or lap 25. Sorry.
Out of curiosity, Andy did finish the race, but 12 laps down. Does that mean he technically gets points?
Yes.
He actually finished so that's a fairly unique situation in that he's finished behind two people who DNF'd. Yet he's still going to get the points. I'm presuming he'll get the points for 11th, or will he get the points for 9th?
He'll be classified for 9th. The other three
there you go.
So he'll be promoted. So result for Andy is on, and as he says, no front wing. I think probably someone needs to, and now no rear wing. I think probably someone needs to tell him that he just needs to be a bit more careful and look after his wings, as I'm sure Rambo is watching this footage cringing at his car being run into so many walls. So sorry Rambo, we didn't tell him to go in that car, so just chill, and you need to get back here and get in your car, otherwise it's going to wind up like that.
You guys have your series as Apex Rear Wing. I think Andy's just got his new nickname as No Rear Wing.
Oh.
Let's hope it doesn't persist.
Yeah, we hope it doesn't persist.
It is, and to be fair, this is his first race in the series, and we believe his first race online as well. So he'll definitely be improving as time goes on. And we've got our pit lane reporter actually who's just joined us, Stairs. What's your thoughts on the race that has just entertained us all?
I think if you were a dog, you wouldn't be very hungry, because that was a dog's breakfast. And well, what can we say? We had last week's double winner not making the start. We had the pole sitter overshooting and then spinning several times. We had various people not realizing they were in the way, nearly causing calamitous situations. And that gif of the dude in the mascot outfit or whatever it is, running along with things blowing up behind him, pretty much explains how Greg Nangle saw that race.
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to go on the subject of improvement. So just to go back a few steps on what Stairs was talking about, Luke and Voda, I'm actually really impressed with their races in that effort. They both stayed clean. They both stayed out of the way. That's a big thing, especially for Voda, who has had he's been much maligned with a couple of things.
He has had his fair share of indiscretions.
Good to see that he's learning and he's starting to learn the cars and learn racecraft. So really good to see him up there and in a serious haul of points as well, so that's good.
No, it's a good haul of points for Voda, certainly is. And with that win for Greg Nangle, it moves him, they get 20 points for a win, don't they, Brock?
Yes, they do, yeah.
So that actually moves him up to 71 points in the standings, so that will move him up to outright second place behind Heath Dixon. Now, Heath Dixon's going to only accrue, how many points is he going to accrue for a sixth place finish? He's going to get about 10 points. So
78 points now.
So you're updating them for me as we speak. So that's good.
Yep.
So he goes up to 78. So that really has closed that gap down quite substantially for Greg, moving up to 71. So another good result here for him, and he could very well walk away at the end of tonight's two races with the points lead in the championship with half the races gone. So we'll wait to see.
Interesting tidbit on our last race that we just had. After lap 11, there were no on-track changes for positions. Everything just stayed as it was.
Well, so it was all done in the first half of the race. So
yeah, it was. It seemed like there was more action in the back half of the race than it was, but it ended up most of it being inconsequential.
Now, we seem to have we ticked over into qualifying two, gentlemen? Or in practice? Okay. I was about to say, because we've lost one person from the server. It looks like, actually, Lewis Wedding looks like he's out there at the moment, and he's on screen at the moment. There he is. So let's hope to high heavens that Lewis has managed to get his technical throttle issues sorted. We'll soon find out in a minute.
I have some info on that, sorry, to cut across you there, Nether.
Go for it.
He mentioned that he was going to switch back to his G27 for the second race if he couldn't get the Fanatec sorted out, but he did have that whole race to sort out any Fanatec issues he may have had, so I'll get on that and find out what he's racing with.
Oop, as he runs into the back of Andy there on another lap, and Andy's lost another rear wing, so I'm just looking down the order just to see who we may have lost from that first race, and I believe it's Johnny has not made it back in for race number 2, so disappointing for him, but he was involved in quite a few skirmishes.
There is still another qualifying.
There's still another qualifying to go, so potentially
he may
make it back
in.
as Lewis runs over the rear wing that he just managed to chomp off the back of Andy's car. Lewis still having a bit of a handful through some of these turns, so maybe the sticky throttle issues are still going, but we'll watch with vested interest as to what happens there. There's only a couple of guys on track at the moment, just getting their eye in before qualifying 2 for race number 2.
Yeah, so it looks like our points standings have been entirely updated now. So 7-point lead for Heath after that race. Considering the lead that he had coming into it, he won't be too happy with that. But then there is a bit of daylight back to Corey Ott, who is not here for this race, unfortunately. In fact, 3rd and 4th in the championship, both not here for this race. So it's an excellent chance for some of the people who are hot at their heels, including Luke, Schwass, and Wedding, to jump up. Schwass and Wedding, if they'd been able to finish that race, they would have been able to jump up into the top echelons of this championship. As we're just hearing from Stairs that Lewis has jumped onto his G27, so his Fanatec issues were persisting, so he's gone back to the G27. I know for some of us that going back to a G27 seems would be a step up for us, but yeah, he's on less good hardware, let's say, but I think he'll still be able to punch in some good times with that.
Still hardware that'll do the job. G27s represent. Well, we have got 10 minutes left in this little practice session here. It's not a qualifying session from what we've been told. It's a practice session, and we're just waiting with vested interest here, as it looks like we've actually just been reset to a 20-minute session, and indeed we have, as the red light is currently on at the end of pit lane.
The master above, Brock Harvey, has advanced the session using his supreme admin powers, so in just a couple of seconds we'll bring you qualifying for race 2 at Brands Hatch.
Oh. We wait with vested interest to see who is the first man out of the pits.
Appreciate the title, Bagsy.
Title, please elaborate.
The master above.
Ah.
What I wanted to bring up, guys, we're exactly halfway through the F3 season now. Who's our favourite for champion, seeing what we've seen across the 3.5 races so far?
Yeah, we got one, and we got at the end of this race, race number 2. You'll be exactly right. We'll be exactly halfway through the season, and well, I personally think that Greg's making a charge or a bid for it at the moment, so I wouldn't put it past him that I think that Greg might be the one to swoop through and potentially end up with the championship. But that being said, Heath needs to minimise some of the costly mistakes that he's made, and he got lucky at the very, very first round with some of the mistakes that he made, and he was fortunate enough to recover in this race, or the last race just gone, but he needs to minimise those mistakes if he has to have any chance of hanging on to the lead in the standings.
He had the curse of Clark Curve last race. It bit him 2 or 3 times, and yeah, that's disappointing for Heath. Heath's a brilliant driver, and I would still like to think that he'd be our favourite for the Formula 3 Championship. I agree with you, though. I think that Greg is desperate to do really well in this series, and he's showing it. That was a really steely, determined drive for him to win that race, and he really just checked out once he got past Scruff.
Yeah, it was a very, very brilliant start by both Matt Williams and Greg Nangle, as David Keen's the first man across the line to start a flying lap. Now, they definitely got a really, really good start. Like, Heath had a very, very poor initial getaway, and he was swamped either side by the 2 cars on the run to turn number 1, but they backed out of it, and he somehow managed to hold on to it until that first lap, where he decided to loop it around, and then from there it was see you later, and they were gone.
I'll just interject with my pick. I think actually Lewis Wedding might be the one to beat. In all the races he's participated in with no issues, he's come first, which is
2 races.
Not a bad, which is 2 races, but not a bad strike rate. when he actually has a chance at it. So I think he is going to be the one to beat, to be honest. I think throughout this series, if he can apply some pressure to Nangle, he'll be able to force the mistakes that he needs Nangle to make to be able to catch up to him.
Yeah, Lewis is unbelievable across every category. He's so versatile, and he seems to be able to jump into anything, and he's quick. So hats off to him there, and I agree, he will be putting some pressure on if he's able to stay out of mechanical dramas.
Well, speaking of Lewis, he's at the top of the standings at the moment. He's done a 43-1 in the beginning or the early phases of qualifying 2. That's somewhat 1 and a bit seconds off the pole time from the last race from Greg Nangle, who dived into it was a 41.8 was his qualifying time for race number 1. So we've got a little way to go until we get back into the 41s, but look at Lewis. He's already found nearly 7/10 of a second on this lap alone. So
yeah,
he'll be
might not be too far away if he keeps up this pace.
He's going to be in a mid-42 at this rate, and it's a 42.3, so he found even more time. So already laying down a pretty reasonable marker, having got, as he spins off the curb at turn number 1.
Not be a faster lap. He will be hoping to not repeat that in the race.
And there's no front wing either, so he'll put it in the sheds for a little bit as Heath Dixon dives up to second with a 42.7, so he's currently provisionally second. We've still got some distance to go. We've got a spinner in the background there. It may have been, I think it was Brendan Ross just in the background there in the, like an aqua turquoise coloured blue car. As Heath comes up to the second split, and he's miles away from his PB, so he's going to have some work to do.
Last race's winner, Greg Nangle, is now out on track and setting a fast lap. He's 2 tenths down on Wedding's time currently.
Well, he's on screen now.
He can improve through the second sector. He is looking fast, but he's down another 10th compared to Wedding's time. So it looks like at the moment Wedding has the advantage, and also times may be slightly slower. As we see a large accent in the background.
Yep.
Greg Nangle there.
Yep. Yeah. So Greg Nangle good enough to jump up into third. He was actually surpassed by Matt Williams by 56 on that lap as well, which we didn't see. So provisionally second row at the moment for the Professor as he presses on, and he's still some considerable distance off the top time. But now here's Matt Williams, teammate, finished second in that last race. He's currently provisionally second, as having a little bit of snap oversteer on the exit of turn number 6 and 7, and coming to the line. This won't be an improvement for him, and indeed it isn't. And Dixon's just still sat up into 4th. Luke has jumped up into 5th place as well, so good shout out for Luke. He's set a massively better lap that time around, so obviously a slow first lap and a very, very quick second lap. He's on a 42.7. He's actually not that far away from Heath Dixon's time as well, and the couple of guys ahead of him are only less than 2 tenths away as well. So he's up on his PB by just over a tenth here. So he could be provisionally looking at maybe jumping up onto the second row of the grid provisionally as well. Although, having said that, he just lost a little bit of time in Sector 2. But still on for an improvement if he keeps at this pace, and takes a bit of a different line compared to the other guys. Takes a wider line, uses the curb and carries a bit more speed through the last couple of turns. Improves his time, but doesn't go any further up the order, as Dixon very, very briefly jumped up and then was immediately surpassed by, Nangle's gone to the top. So Nangle's gone to the top at the moment, and that's a very, very good lap. So he's done a 42.2 and now starting to get into territory where he was before the first race began with qualifying 1, and he's pushing on here as the track grip starts to return.
Wedding was on a comparable time to Nangle there, but for some reason he pulled out of the lap. I'm not sure why, but
Greg's pulled out of this one.
He wanted some fresh tyres and have another go.
And Greg's pulled out of this one.
Lap just to confirm a setup change, and he's going to go put fresh rubber on, come out and see if he can blitz that time that Nangle's just set.
Yeah, well, Lewis is just on track at the moment, having on an out lap, just having to negotiate a little bit of traffic at Druids. And he's got, I think it's Brendan Ross coming up, so he's going to have to avoid him. Brendan Ross and Voda the only 2 men yet to set a time. Voda actually parked up in the pits at the moment, so we haven't seen him on track just yet, as Wedding begins his charge to the line to initiate the timing screens. Let's see what he can do as we right on board with the above TCAM wing. And it doesn't trouble the apex there at all. It's very wide at turn number 1. Now the run to turn 2. That's a little bit better. Used plenty of curb there and was penalised with some oversteer, which he promptly corrects.
Yeah, this lap is
it's already rubbish.
He's half a second down. There's no way he's getting half a second back in last sector on a lap this short.
No, but he still can press on and prepare for another lap. And we saw this in qualifying for race number 1, where some of the guys did spend a couple of laps consecutively on the track to get themselves going before they set a decent time. And yeah, that lap time, he lost it all in first sector there, Lewis Wedding, and doesn't trouble the apex again at turn number 1, so leaving a bit of time on the table there. Let's see if he's punished for it down here at the second timing split. He avoids the curb that time around. It's a much better exit, but he's already a quarter of a second down. He's got a spinner here as well that Luke and just gets out of the way, so good driving there. Wedding coming up to the tricky Surtees, McLaren and Clearways turns, and now about to come through Clark curve on the run to the line. So he's maintained it through this lap, has Lewis Wedding, and comes to the line and sets a 42.5, so still some distance off an angle's time. Now that's a better turn 1, but he's taken too much curb and ran very, very wide, and immediately says, I've had enough.
A little bit of information here for you, Nether, and it might explain why Heath had a few issues at Clark Curve. Heath is currently sitting with the highest top speed of the weekend at 226 kilometres per hour. Greg Nangle is second at 224. So a full 2 kilometres up maybe suggested he was running a little bit light on the rear wing, and the lack of downforce might have just hurt him once he got to the race pace and cold tyres.
That's a very, very possible explanation, yes.
Matt Williams was on a purple lap, but had a spin which cost him the potential of going pole. So unlucky there. Very, very unlucky for the other Far Canal racing driver.
And this is going to be a running gag all night, isn't it? This team name that these two guys have, and we're very, very, very careful with how we pronounce that team name.
I'm going to very specifically say it very slowly every single time, so they do not get the enjoyment that they so desire.
I think we need an abbreviation, just like FCR. That should be enough.
Let's just call them FCR. I think that'll be fine. As well as the supercar team that they've put together, or that he and
let's not
put together.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Yeah, we'll just call them the next Thursday team.
The next Thursday team. That's good enough. Nangle's up here, gentlemen. He's nearly 2/10 up on his sector 1 time, so, and got the turn 3 turn absolutely spot on, and he's being followed by Wedding as well. So Nangle's on a quick one, but he's just dropped a little bit of time there in sector 2. But can he get on with it? He's got a man ahead of him who's just recovering to the track and stays away. And is that Andy again with a damaged wing again? So can Nangle go into the 41s? Not quite, but he goes very, very close. He's done 42.1, and behind him, Wedding actually aborted that lap. So Wedding was on track.
In the quest for more speed, Wedding has spun again. He seems to be really pushing to try and catch Nangle.
Gentlemen,
here.
have a look who is setting the timing screens alight. It's Heath Dixon. He's 2/10 up on the pole sitters time at the minute on the run to the line, currently 4th, and he surpasses him with a 42.0. So he was 2/10 up. He was scheduled to go under. Oh, as he spins there. Thank you for following the commentator's curse, Heath. But
he will not be improving this lap.
No, it was actually looking like he was going to go under the 41s for a minute, but he had a bit of a poor exit out of the last turn, and consequently couldn't get the power down enough to stay under the 42-second barrier. But ominously sounds the bell and says, "I'm still here, and I'm still going to challenge for pole." And only a 10th separates the top 2 men on the pecking order at the moment.
Lewis has just started a new lap. One thing I know about Lewis, or that I've learned about Lewis since he joined the league, he does not like to come second. Doesn't matter what session you're in, or whether it be a race, practice, whatever, Lewis likes to sit on top of that timesheet, so he'll have the bit between his teeth trying to go pole.
He does.
It's interesting that this time Heath has set the faster time, but there's 10 minutes now for Nangle to try and improve on it, as we've got Andy going around without a rear wing or front winging yet again. So hopefully someone can get on the buzzer to him and let him know that he needs to come back for some repairs because that is not going to be setting the timing screens alight.
Yeah, as I think Brock, you might have to do the honours with that one, and just let him know that he's just causing a few little bits of issue as we watch Greg Nangle here is up on the current pulse this time. So the last time around he improved his PB and he's improving it again. He's look at the timing split. He's a tenth up on his PB, but he's only half a tenth up on the pole sitter's time. Potentially this is going to pop him on the front row provisionally, and it is. He's under the 42-second barrier. So it was already on the front row, but now switches positions provisionally with Heath Dixon.
As well, and is about to come across the line.
Well, here's Wedding to the inside, and he goes third. So have a look at this. Our top three at the moment are separated by 66 hundredths of a second.
This is where the bull ring delivers for you, or the Brands Hatch bull ring, as Wedding gets massively sideways coming through the first turn there.
Yes, and promptly gives it up. Now, Heath's on an outlap here, but he's some considerable margin off his time. He was on an outlap, and this lap time is considerably off what he was, but potentially just getting it ready to go for another one. But you were saying before I cut across you, Brock?
I was just saying that this, where the short circuit comes in really handy, is you will get those closer gaps because there's less turns to make mistakes and make gains on. So this is really exciting. We've got three guys who really at the top of their game in this type of car, and you're going head to head. And we still haven't seen Matt Williams what he can deliver in the last 5 minutes as well, because I'm pretty sure he could challenge them as well. So we could have really the big four in this series within a couple of tenths of each other.
Well, speaking of Matt Williams, he's currently on a lap at the moment, just exited Druids Bend, and he's not that far away from his own PB, but just gave it up, so obviously wasn't happy with what he saw. And he's actually just struggling to stay ahead of Luke. So Luke's done quite well to be within a tenth and a half of Matt Williams, and he's on the third row at the moment, and he's actually got Matt Schwass for company on the third row with him as well, provisionally at the moment, Luke. So you wouldn't want to drop too much time, but he's got just over 6 minutes left to go. As we've got another yellow flag here for, it looks like it's Andy again on the infield, or spinning on the infield, just cutting across a camera shot there.
Notice that Voda he's only done one outlap and one inlap so far.
Yeah, so he hasn't.
Voda's going to start from pit lane or start from the back of the grid and hope for some carnage in front of him.
Very strange. He's just, he's sitting there in the pit lane all by himself, and we're not sure if he's going to set a time or not, but we hope for our sake he'll get out there, because he did have a very, very good race number one there and kept his nose clean.
There's something to be said. It's the old iRacing safety strategy to start from the back of the grid, let everyone kill each other at turn one, and then you just kind of cruise through. So there was a bit of carnage in that race. We'd like to
think we have a better standard of racing than iRacing, but I'm not sure if that's true or not. But having used iRacing in the past, I've never really enjoyed iRacing's system of penalties, and I think it's quite stupid. But that's just my personal opinion. Other people sing its praises, but I feel that it's a bit overzealous.
I think let's go on that subject, as we've got 5 minutes left to go. That the safety rating is a crock of shit. I'm sorry about that.
I'm glad. You. I feel I put it a bit more diplomatically, but that's fair enough. And we do still have 5 minutes in this session, so there is every chance for these times to tumble even further, and try and lower these times. We're just hearing as Wedding seems to have spun trying to leave his pit box. From our pit lane reporter stairs, he's been watching Wedding fairly closely and feels that he might be overdriving the car a bit, getting in his head a bit, and that's why he's having so many issues. He's only, like we said, only 5/100ths of a second behind. So.
Well, I apologise for the S-bomb there. I've been reading the Alan Jones book, and being blunt, it seems to be coming out of me.
Well, I think we're off the air in the iRacing head office in terms of what they were watching for us. So apologies to you iRacing little fellows. It's completely unintentional. But getting back to your point, or Stairs' point that you raised, Bagsy, about Lewis Wedding, we did see this in the, I think it was the Super Series race in Hidden Valley a couple of weeks ago, where he was on the pole provisionally on qualifying for race number one, and did finish that on pole, but then the qualifying was rerun, and he switched places with Hobson, and he was a very frustrated man. We could see him continuously pushing and pushing and pushing, and couldn't get anywhere near Hobson's time, and subsequently it ended up that he didn't win any of those races. Actually had a bit of a scrappy race in both those races as well. So just overdriving the car, you just got to make sure you keep it within its limits. You don't want to push unnecessarily. You've got to know when to push, and you've got to know when to back off and to be consistent about things. And that's what Lewis just needs to do here. Is he just needs to find his groove. He's got just over 3 minutes left on this lap, as he's not that far away from his PB, but it's certainly not going to set the timing screens alight as he posts a 42.0. But he's going to have to do better than that. He's got about another 3 laps in here, I reckon.
He's so competitive, Lewis. He will be pushing himself and biting his lip to try and grab that pole. That's the Ayrton Senna, I guess, in him there. He doesn't like to be. He's done 22 laps, so he's done more laps than every other driver out there at the moment.
Well,
in an attempt to nab pole.
He just went green, or purple, I should say. Sorry, in sector number 1, Lewis Wedding. And
he's grabbed a bit of grass in sector 2, but he's still ahead.
He's still ahead, so this is provisionally going to send him to the front row if nobody else behind can match it.
He's been losing most of his time in the final sector, so we'll see if he's able to get it as he comes across the line.
He has a 41.7.
By 0.2 of a second. I believe that's the fastest lap.
It is. It is
so far by 1,000th of a second.
It is the fastest lap of the... is it? No, it is not. Sorry, it is not the fastest lap. Heath Dixon had set the qualifying benchmark with a 41.709, but it is the second fastest lap for the weekend.
Note on that as well, top speed for Wedding was 222 kilometres an hour, so he's still 4 kilometres down on Dixon. So he's either not getting the run out of the corner because he's learning not enough wing, or he's got too much wing on, one of the two.
Well,
despite getting into first place there, Wedding is apparently quite annoyed because he was trying to set another lap and got into the back of Andy, who he described as a moving chicane.
Well, there will probably be words exchanged again after the session is over. But here's the professor. He's going to get another 2 laps to go here and still can't bridge that gap. But Wedding has laid down the benchmark here. And the third place man, Heath Dixon, is some 0.2 of a second off the pole time at the moment. He's probably going to get another 2 laps in as well if he keeps on this pace.
Apologies. I credited the quote I previously credited to Wedding about the moving chicane was not Wedding. It was, in fact, our pit reporter's stairs. So I did not mean to put words into Wedding's mouth at all.
Well, Greg Nangle went purple in Sector 1 and he dropped away in Sector 2, but he's set to improve his time. But can he find any time in this final sector? As Matt Williams is behind him trying to get a bit of a tow, but no, he improves his time as now 76 hundredths away from the pole sitter, but this is his last lap and he actually pulled over, so he's satisfied with that. And happy to be starting from the front row, but maybe
Dixon in third won't be able to set another lap.
No,
he's gone back to the pits.
He's currently in the pits.
I believe Wedding has 20 seconds to get back to the start-finish line. It's going to be very close. I'm not sure if he'll get there in time though.
He probably doesn't need to go and set another lap.
He's gone into 4th as well.
He has.
He's been in 4th. He's been in 4th for quite a while now. Matt has been trying to get up to him, but it's just that 10th that he can't seem to get. As we see, if Wedding's going to be able to start a lap, he's very close. He has.
Yep. So Matt Williams trying to get a tow here from Brennan Ross and doesn't actually improve. So he'll stay 5th. Even though Wedding doesn't need to set another time, he's still going for it. And he's gone very deep with the brakes there. So that's going to cost him. I'd be very surprised if he goes purple here. And no, he's down by over a 10th. So I dare say he's probably not going to improve his time this lap around. He's the only man on the circuit actually that can set a time. But
he's just showing off at this point, really. I've already got pole, but I'm just here to show you that I can probably beat all your times anyway, as he is a little bit faster. He set a purple second sector here, so
he did.
He's really going for it anyway.
Stays low, and 41.9, so a 10th and a half away, and he is the pole sitter for race number 2, and second place goes to Greg Nangle. There he is, so can back-to-back front row starts for Nangle, and Heath Dixon relegated to 3rd. So the points leader starting 3rd, and given his history, or recent history and history in this F3 series, he doesn't tend to get the best of starts, but would you want to be starting 3rd, especially with the likes of Luke and Matt Williams sitting behind you as well, and getting caught up in a first lap incident?
And
That's
Matt
the
Schwartz, who's been really, really solid this year as well.
He has.
I think the big story of this qualifying is Luke getting ahead of Matt Williams. Matt Williams was third in the first race, and he's down in fifth now. He'll be wondering where his time's gone, because he came in a fairly comfortable second in race one, but it'll be a bit more difficult to do that in race two unless people drop off the park in front of him.
I think Matt can be a bit of a victim of his own brain. Sometimes he can overdrive the car in an attempt to make up a gap, and he has a tendency to go just that little bit late under brakes to make up time. Whereas sometimes he's losing time and that's causing him to lose time on the exit speed. So if he was braking a little bit earlier, he'd actually gain that time on exit speed. So, but I think still look out for him to have a strong race. He'd be really wrapped with second in race one, and he'd be looking for another podium in race two.
He certainly will be, and we wait for this 5-minute warm-up session to commence. There it goes.
Just while we're waiting, Nether, want to bring up that the Short Shift podcast, we're back for our May episode tomorrow with you as my special guest.
Oh, very well. I'm going to be truly honoured. I think we've been discussing this for a little while. You'll now have to remind me that I'm going to have to put that in the calendar on my phone. So I remembered, so that it's all going according to plan. As I'm just reading my phone going, oh, that's right, we did have a little bit of audio issues a bit earlier on in the piece, so we do apologise for that. We hope that the audio for Brock and Bagsy is coming through quite nicely for all the viewers watching at home, or wherever you may be.
So I guess going back to the podcast, we'll be doing a special sim racing edition of the podcast this time around, which is really good to have Stairs and yourself on board for that one. And Bagsy, you're welcome to join us as well if you like, mate. And with the go-kart season in a bit of hiatus, we actually go to Phillip Island next week for the go-kart series. So we thought let's mix it up a little bit, put a bit more focus onto the sim racing side of things, which has grown exponentially for Short Shift and Automobilista Australia. And yeah, I think a lot of people will be interested to see what we got planned and what's going on and listening on what's happening.
And I echo your sentiments, Brock. The group has grown quite substantially in recent weeks and months, and I can only say to any of you guys who are watching this, or you listen to the podcast, or you're on the Facebook group, please get involved. The more guys we have involved in the series that are being run, the better. But obviously stay tuned and see if anything that's being run pricks up your interest. And we'd love to see more people out there. Obviously a grid of only 13 cars tonight, we'd love to see that getting expanded.
I'm actually amazed at the growth that we're getting from the, I guess, the national racing community. I'm getting some messages directly from Formula V guys and XL guys, and they want me to help them build cars and build mods for this simulator, so they can get the practice in for what is their, I guess, profession or semi-profession, because they don't get the ability to test like the big teams do. So they're using Automobilista to test, which is amazing. That probably proves how good the simulator actually is. But it's nice to be involved with them and helping out their racing careers and their, I guess, their speed moving forward. So it's good for us as a group, as Automobilista. It's good for me as an individual. But it's great to have these guys part of the series and racing us. We recently had Anton Di Pasquale join the group. He hasn't gone on and joined the grid yet, but I can't wait for the day that we have Anton out there racing the supercar with us, because no doubt he'll flog us all, but it'll be amazing to be racing a professional race car driver.
Yeah, it's a feather in your cap to be able to have somebody from a national series join the group, and as I say, we wait to see for the day that he does come along and gives us all an absolute flogging.
That's it.
But it looks like Voda's actually out on track as well now, so maybe your theory about him starting from the back of the grid is correct, Brock, because he's set a time of a 45 second time, 45.4 just on the warm-up here, so looks like he's up and running, and we'll see him starting from the back of the grid, and could be a smart strategy given the calamity of the first couple of laps of race number one.
Well, we did see him go up 5 places in the last race. He started from the same position, or he started from 12th in the last race and got up to 7th. I believe that was with a spin as well during the race. So he's he's got a lot better in a very short space of time.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's excellent to see. And he's pumping out some good consistent results because he's one of the drivers who I believe shows up to every series, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, credit where it's due. He's learning a lot, and he's learning a lot quickly. So it's not going to be long before he's up there and racing the Pro B guys, and then hopefully for him, he's able to find some real speed and go and compete against the Pro A guys. So you're right though. He doesn't matter what series you're running. Voters out there, he's churning out laps, and he's trying to do his best. So credit where it's due, and I was glad to see him get a result tonight.
Absolutely, I think we were all glad to see him finally get. It's like Jamie Snow when Jamie finally got the monkey off his back with that first race win. Voted to get the result that he has tonight has certainly gone a long way to getting that the moniker off his back that we've been putting on him for a while. We'd like to see that.
Rewarded. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's
So,
always good to see hard work.
thumbs up to you, mate. Keep doing what you're doing. You did it very, very well in the last race, and just repeat yourself this time around. It's great to see.
Again with Luke as well, hard work getting rewarded. Luke's been putting in plenty of time in practice and churning out the laps, and to finish fourth again, Pro Am guy mixing it with what's really the top echelon in this is the Pro B and the one Pro A guy. That's a pretty big effort. And
Yes.
yeah, again, hopefully Luke can stay clean and get some results because I'd love to see him up in Pro B with us as well.
Well,
So time in warm-up has expired, so we're getting ready to go racing in race 2 around this quite excellent track. It should be an excellent race.
well,
It is a brilliant little track, this one.
a little bull ring that we described it as earlier. It certainly delivered in race number 1 early on, and race number 2 we hope is no different, although we'd like to see a little bit cleaner racing this time around. And a little bit more close fight, but unfortunately the inevitable things tend to happen as the field starts to grid up.
It's funny, it doesn't matter how experienced some of these guys get, they still get the red mist, don't they? And they dive into a spot that may not be there, or they close a gap where they shouldn't be closing the gap, and it can cause carnage. You'd think the more races they do, then that would disappear, but it proves that once you're a racer, you're always a racer. You always want to get in front of the guy in front of you.
Now Lewis very, very late to get out to the grid here. So there he is, the pole sitter, and we are away for the formation lap. So let's take you through this grid order for race number 2. So Lewis Wedding, recovering from technical issues in race number 1, will start on the pole with a 41.7 his qualifying time. There's the Professor Greg Nangle, back-to-back front row starts for him, starting second. Heath Dixon was the pole sitter in race number 1, and he'll be looking to redeem himself here in race number 2, having gone from the pole to finish in 6th. And Luke, an excellent qualifying result for Luke, starting in 4th. Matt Williams, second of the Far Canal Racing cars, or the FCR cars as they're now called, starting 5th. Matt Schwass starts 6th. Rob Dunt, who had an excellent third place debut podium in that last race, starting in 7th. Similar spot to where he started the last one from. David Keane alongside him in 8th. Aussie will start 9th. Brendan Ross starting in 10th. Andy has... Oh, what's happened here? I think Andy may find... I'm not sure if he's left the pit lane, but he's way behind the rest of the pack. And Voda will start 12th. So Andy's got quite some substantial distance to go here. I'm not... Did he make it out to the grid in time, gentlemen? Or does he...
He did. He did make it out, but he missed the start of the warm-up lap, it seems.
So this is going to...
He didn't miss the start. He actually spun it off the when they took off from the warm-up lap. So he's actually lucky he didn't take Voda out because he spun it straight across the front.
All right, so we're going to be waiting a little while, unfortunately, for Andy to make his way around. This is going to cause all the guys that have been warming their tyres and their brakes to sit there and having to... They're going to be getting colder and colder.
Absolute carnage on the first lap. Also, just we're hearing through that Wedding did not change his tyres between qualifying and the race, so he's going to be starting on tyres that are more worn than the people behind him. So he's going to have a job to keep his tyres because they've already gone through a heat cycle. So
and this is not the first time we've had this.
And
this is not the first time we've seen this from Wedding as well. He did it in the supercars as well. So
we have Andy gridding up now.
Andy's gridding up now, so he's in order.
I was going to say Andy hit his marks perfectly there, so that was...
Now Lewis is a bit far forward in his box here. I'm not sure if he's going to be... he's going to be okay here, but he gets away, and he gets away relatively well, and he'll cover off into turn number 1 here. And Heath Dixon is already challenging on the inside of Greg Nangle here, but he gives him the space, so the Professor manages to hold on to second place. Matt Williams has had an excellent start. He's up to 4th place, and as Lewis goes a little bit, locks up a little bit going there into Druids Bend, and he's already gapping the field here, Lewis. He's already, look at the gap, it's already up to 3/4 of a second, so he's had an excellent start as they come through the back straight here on their way to turn number 4, the Surtees Bend, and it looks like we're relatively clean so far, gentlemen. Oh, no, so speed that as Lewis has gone around. As I say that, Lewis has gone around, and what on earth has happened there? He's completely done it all by himself. We saw that Heath Dixon had all sorts of trouble at that turn in race number 1. Lewis drops all the way almost to the back of the field, right down to 11th, and he did it all on his own, and he'll be absolutely furious under that helmet.
2 races in a row, Greg Nangle has seen all his prayers be answered as he's seen the person in front of him just go off into the wilderness.
It's the curse of Clark Curve, mate. It's it's caught out the leader of the first lap on both occasions, and Greg's just walking away with it again. He's a second ahead of Dixon, so yeah, it would be interesting to see if Dicko can pull it back in. But at the moment, Greg has got his eyes on, and he's pulling away. Well,
we'll be keeping our eyes on Clark Curve, named after Jim Clark. As Greg Nangle comes to the line, he's got 1.1 seconds on Heath Dixon already, and the top 3 have definitely checked out already. And Heath is trying to keep Matt Williams behind him, who's had an excellent start. He's moved up 2 positions, one by result of attrition and one by result of an excellent start. And Luke has dropped down into what started 4th and is still 4th, but he has been passed by Matt Williams. David Keane has moved up the order. He's the biggest mover so far, up 3 positions from 8th to 5th, going along quite nicely. And this field has, as we said before, has strung out quite substantially. So there's really no battles going on and up and down the track as Wedding is recovering. We've seen him go from 11th up to 8th. He just jumped up to 8th on the timing screen. So just getting past a lot of the back markers here. And here he is coming through Clark Curve, and he'll be got to have the bit between the teeth now and trying to reel in those leaders as quickly as he possibly can.
I believe Brendan Ross hasn't put enough fuel in the car, guys. He's asking questions about filling up, so you may see him stop and have to take.
He's in the pits at the moment currently.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll see if he can take on some fuel and get back out and finish the race.
Well, that Wedding has gained 1 spot so far on Boda. He's back up to 8th. So 2 spots. He's also got Aussie as well.
Yeah. So Lewis apparently on the team radio to the not happy that the commentator team has been gave him the commentator's curse. Well, I'm sorry, Lewis, we didn't give you the commentator's curse. We were just watching you when we went and we said that everybody had gone caution free or had been very, very clean, and then you did it all on your own, son. So read into that what you will. We didn't give it to you. He's now closing in here on Rob Dunt, who is currently sat up in 7th place, and looking at the back of Matt Schwass's wing. And let's see how Rob presents a bit of a moving obstacle for Lewis Wedding. Lewis will be substantially faster, but this will probably be the challenge for him. He's got 3 cars in quick succession, Lewis Wedding, and he'll wanting to get past these guys as quick as he can.
Wide.
He has.
He got on the curb on the inside in the grass, and he's run wide into Clark Curve. So he's dropped off the pack a little bit. Because there are 3 cars up for grabs here who he's arguably a second or more faster, so he should be able to make easy work of him. But if he makes mistakes like that, he's not going to progress as far as he wants.
Yeah, you've only got to look at the lap time that he did that time around. It was a 43.7. It was some 1.3 seconds off his best lap time as he puts the brakes on and goes a little bit deeper at Druids Bend, and he's really pushing it hard here, even though he knows he's got tyres that have already seen qualifying and hasn't changed them. He's still pushing on with it because he knows he needs to get past these guys and then probably can settle into some sort of rhythm. And there's your fastest lap of the race at the moment, Greg Nangle with a 42.3 and a very respectable lap time. Now Lewis is in the slipstream here of Rob Dunt, so this should be enough for him to make a move into turn 1. And he draws alongside. Rob sees him there and stays wide, and that's very, very sensible driving. Just slots in behind. He knows that the battle was already lost. As we see, who's that going across the infield? Is that Lewis is going to? He gained 2 spots. So Matt Schwass has gone off the circuit there as well, gentlemen, and he's into the barriers. So we'll see if we can get a replay of what happened there. So here he comes. This is what happened in the background. Wedding was making a move on Rob Dunt and just a little bit too much curb, and we've seen it happen quite a lot there, and doesn't manage to keep it out of the barriers. So unfortunately for Matt Schwass, he's now been relegated down into 10th place.
While we're watching that replay, Wedding has got past David Keane as well.
So he certainly has, and there he is. He's done the job as they come through turn number... Is it turn number... What are we looking at there? 2, sorry, turn number 2.
Next in his sights, 5 seconds down the road, is Luke, who's currently 4th.
Well, still plenty of time for him to catch the front runners, Lewis Wedding, but he's really going to need to push on with it. And speaking of pushing on, Nangle improves his fastest lap to a 42.2, so fastest lap of the race. He's comfortably out in front of Heath Dixon by some 3 and a bit seconds, and it's not the same sort of margin that he was waltzing away with over his teammate last time, Greg Nangle, but he's still hungry for another race win, and he knows that first points in the standings are up, or first place in the point standings are up for grabs if he can keep this form going.
Driving the car beautifully at the moment, Greg. He is the master of driving the car at about 98%. So you may not always get 100% out of the tyre and out of the car, but you'll get pretty bloody close to it without overstepping the mark. So yeah, see if he can keep marching away. He's 2.7 seconds ahead of Heath at the moment. Looks like Matt was catching, or is catching Heath a little bit, but I think Matt just had a bad sector 3 there.
The important thing to note here is that all Heath needs is a third or better to retain the points lead in the championship. So basically, he just needs to be consistent. He needs to not do what he did last race and throw it away with spins.
Well, we just saw a rear wing sitting in the middle of the track there, so hopefully someone doesn't run over that and cause themselves too much grief. But we suspect
it looks like Luke has pit from 4th place. So Wedding is now up to 4th place, about 10 seconds down on Matt Williams in FCR, the FCR car.
Well, we didn't see what happened to Luke that time around, but he's gone a lap down to the race leader here, so if he's going to rejoin the circuit, he'll have to be careful with the lap traffic at this point in time. Greg's managed to get his gap out to a little bit further, and Wedding now bangs in the fastest lap of 42.1, so despite the tyre issue that has come apart on the grid. Someone's hit the Pirelli sign there and spitting back onto track, and it looks like it was Andy, because he's on the outside there and he's missing a front wing, so I suspect that's what's caused that problem. Greg managing, and Aussie getting out of the way too, so Greg already putting the 9th place man 1 lap down and probably far away, as we've seen in the background there. It was Andy going right through, and he's had a horrible incident. He's lost a rear wheel as well here, so he's had a dead set shocking 2 races for his first initiation into this series, and his wheel's up against the barrier there, and you can see whatever happened to him has happened to the exit of turn number 7 here, as we're cutting to the replay and bring it up. Yeah, he was a passenger from the minute he put his foot down there, and completely and utterly has destroyed that car, so he's going to have to retire that car. There's no way in hell he's going to be able to continue, and in fact he has. He's done the sensible thing. He's gone to the garage, and that is the end of that.
That's the end of Andy's debut race. I'm not too disappointed in him. He's come out in what I think Bagsy described as what is probably the hardest car to learn how to drive for our official races anyway. So I think moving forward, if he sticks to it, we've got a few different series moving forward with the Sports Car Championship, Formula V, and obviously the Super Series where you can drive the Lancer. A little bit easy car to learn in, and I think if he can stick to it, he should be good.
Just hearing that the reason Luke pit before was due to damage from running into Andy, because Andy ran into him, I believe. So that's what caused Andy to lose his front wing initially. So yeah, it seems he's had some issues, but hopefully he can go out, get some practice, and come back a better racer.
It's another driver that will coach through whatever issues that they're having and get them out there. If you have a look, Motor's up into 7th at the moment, and again doing quite well. So
being harassed by Matt Schwass at the moment, and they're both about to be lapped by Nangle.
Well, let's cut to that little action shot there, as here they are. I think Nangle may have... Has Nangle just gone through? I think he may have. Well, there was a car ahead that certainly looked like it, so he has. So Voda going about his business quite nicely here, And let's have a look at the lap time that he sets as he comes across the line. So he sets a 46.3 that time around, obviously having to get out of the way for Greg. But a 44.3 is quite a respectable lap time. And he's doing well to keep Schwass at bay here, but Schwass will be looking for opportunities. He goes to the inside there on turn number 2, and that's a very, very decisive pass. Voda probably wouldn't have seen that coming, but he did very, very well to avoid it at the last minute, and that's surely worth a wonderful replay.
I've been lucky enough to race Matt wheel to wheel a few races now, and he's probably the last of the late breakers. So I'm not surprised to see that move being made.
Yep. So here it is, and from a different angle, and clean as a whistle. No contact whatsoever.
There's been a crash, but Voda has spun, and Matt Williams has had nowhere to go and run directly into him.
And that's a horrible outcome. And Voda has lost everything completely. So let's see if we can get a replay on what happened to Voda here. And we're looking at him coming through. That's the last couple of turns. Completely lost it. Oh, and so close to being collected by Heath Dixon. And he was actually collected was that by Matt Williams. So what a disaster that is for Voda, and also for Matt Williams, who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And Voda has retired, unfortunately, from the race.
Yeah, Matt had 2 options to choose from, and unfortunately he chose the wrong one. Ended up turning directly into Voda instead of going around him. So it's just a shame for Matt. You can't really lay... I mean, obviously Voda was the one who spun, but that's what's going to happen when you push, especially when he was having that battle with Matt Schwass. It's a shame that his race has ended like that, and it's also a shame for Matt Williams, who's going to have a lengthy repair and has lost a podium because of that.
He has, so he's all the way down to 9th now, Matt Williams, and he's lost a lap to the race leader, potentially going to lose another one, but we'll see how that pans out. So, as we said before, we saw that what happened with, I think it was Johnny in the last race as well, where he completely went the wrong way trying to avoid someone who was coming and collected him. But these things unfortunately happen in racing, but we'll see what the outcome of that is in the stewards' rooms after the race.
As a result of all this, Wedding is now up to 3rd place and on a podium after his lap 1 spin, so he's going to be counting his lucky stars.
He will be.
Speed.
He's still 10 seconds away from Heath Dixon, though, is Lewis Wedding, and unless there's a major issue for any of the guys ahead of him, he's not going to close that gap to anytime soon. We've seen this a lot, though. He goes very, very deep and locks that inside right front going to Druids Bend. He's done that a few times now, so maybe just pushing a little bit too hard, or he's got a flat spot on that tyre that just keeps coming back to that spot all the time under the heavy braking for Druids.
Remember, his tyres are a lot worse than the people around him because of forgetting to change them between qualifying the race, so he's probably just struggling with some grip issues that other people will be getting on the last couple of laps. He's just getting them on lap 18 instead.
Well, Lewis to the line, sets a 42.7 that time around, so doesn't really make any inroads into the guys ahead, so been a bit of a lonely race for Heath. He's managing to hold down 2nd place at the moment, so that will be good enough for him to retain the points lead should this go green all the way to the flag, and still hasn't been able to make many inroads into Greg's lead, but Greg's just very quietly eked out that 6.5 second gap, and I think he's probably just gone into a bit of cruise control here too, Greg. But
Brendan Ross is retired as well now, that he is out of fuel.
So completely out of fuel. You called it right early in the piece. He ran out of fuel and has retired with not being able to make the journey. So disappointing for him. So that means we've lost 3 runners. We've lost Brendan Ross, we've lost Andy, and we've lost Voda. We've got 4 guys currently 1 lap down, 5 guys currently on the lead lap. I'm going to go back to a little bit of a battle that I've just been keeping an eye on the timing screens, and it's Rob Dunt. So he is currently in 4th place, backing up from his excellent 3rd place in the last race, and David Keane is doing his best again to try and bridge that gap, and at this stage unsuccessfully. We'll just have a look to see what our results were from the last race as well with some of those guys, and Rob Dunt having finished 3rd, and if we look down our list, David Keane, it says DNS for David Keane for the last race, but I think that may be, I'm not sure if that's an error or not. Keane came 4th in the last race, so we looked at our results a little bit out of date. But he's doing his best to bridge that gap, but it's still hovering at around 3 seconds. So
Quite impressed with Rob at the moment. He's been really level-headed and driving it well. Like he's keeping it straight and he's got good lines. So it won't be long before he'll be up and competing in Pro B, I don't think.
And we spoke about consistency as well. So he's just gone about it at a pace that's comfortable for him, and he's let the race come to him, and it certainly has come to him with the attrition that's happened ahead of him, and he just kept his nose clean, and that's all you can ask for in somebody who's on debut in the series, is just to go about it in that fashion and no more and no less.
That's it.
Well, we've only got a handful of laps remaining, gentlemen, and this man on screen at the moment about to commence his 23rd lap out of 25. It's Greg Nangle, and he leads by 8 seconds, and he's still setting 42, so he's really found a rhythm that's working for him, and he's in the zone at the minute.
Absolutely, we might have to find him a Alan Frost helmet to put in this car, I think, since he's taken on the mantle of the Professor and he's driving like him right now.
He certainly is, and coming up to the last sequence of turns on this lap and about to commence the penultimate lap. Now, I just noticed on the side pods he's actually got a number of 370 on the car. It's an unusually high number for a driver to have on the car. See guys usually having either single or double digit numbers. Very rarely do we see a triple digit number, and certainly not one that high, but nonetheless, car 370 is on the penultimate lap and still leads comfortably by 8 seconds, and he's been a class of his own, Greg, all night. Made a very, very decisive manoeuvre on the early start of race number 1, as there's a bit of dust being kicked up on our screen. I think it looks like it might be Aussie may have toured the infield there, as he's the car immediately ahead of Greg, as there was just something on the infield there. Might have been a wheel or some part of a body part of the car.
That's the wheel left over from the Voda-Williams collision.
Alright, so still there on the track, but out of harm's way as the Professor commences the final lap. Now, our timing screen's playing havoc with us here, as Heath Dixon lost a lot of time, because he's gone from about 8 seconds behind to about 11 seconds behind, but
he had a scrappy lap, 46-second lap.
But he's still ahead of Wedding by enough margin to retain second place, so he'll continue to hold that position down. But this man has been untouchable all night as he comes through the final sequence of turns, and hats off to the Professor. He has been a class of the field tonight. School was in session, and the Professor was presiding. 2 race wins for Greg Nangle, and a job well done. Maximum points.
He did not put a nick or scratch on it as well, so unbelievable drive. Really, really solid night for Greg.
Second place goes to the points leader, Heath Dixon, and he will retain second points in the standings, and a recovery drive for Lewis Wedding. He'll finish a distant third, but he picks up some valuable points there. Rob Dunt will back up his third place in race number 1 with fourth place in race number 2, so job well done for the debutant. And what a way to start your career in AMS Oz F3. David Keane
and Rob Dunt not able to be separated in both races, really.
Yeah, they were sort of fixed apart at distance for a while. Matt Schwass has, I think, if memory serves me correctly, he recovered from a little bit of, calamity in that race, not his own fault, but he will come across to finish, actually has been lapped, so finishes 6th, and Luke 7th, Aussie 8th, Matt Williams finished in 9th after that unfortunate collision with Voda at the final sequence of corners, and Voda is classified as 10th but is DNF and will not score points, along with Andy and Ross.
Interestingly enough, Ross actually managed to convince his team to put fuel in the car and made it out and completed the last lap. So he's been classified in 12th, but did finish the last lap.
Interesting. We'll have to have a look at that one from a points perspective and see what happens there.
I think what might have happened there, sorry to cut across you there, is that because there's no refueling in this, he came in to the pits with enough fuel to come back out of the pits, but not for a full lap. So he might have waited until Nangle was coming across the line to win, so that he actually finished. He was still running when the race finished. So crafty, Um,
That's how you build a championship.
yeah, it means he gets a handful of points there.
It does. So we're going to see if we can run along and try and get any of the gentlemen from the podiums to join us, but none have been forthcoming at the moment. Well, as I said before, gentlemen, school was in session and the professor was presiding, and he's walked away with the chocolates for both races, and a job well done. He didn't put a foot wrong all night, and that goes extremely well for his point standings. He's now closed to within 4 points of Heath Dixon for the title at the moment, with half the races gone.
So we've got his let's say less fortunate teammate in Matt Williams, who had a good second place in the first race, but a disastrous second race. Matt, what are your feelings on how the second race went more specifically? We saw you had a good first race.
I was fighting for second with Heath when we were lapping Voda and he spun, so not much you can really say about it.
Obviously, very, very disappointed. He's in the wrong place at the wrong time, and look, we had praised Voda, I guess, for his driving in race number one. He was doing quite well, and an unfortunate spin, and we saw also in race number one a couple of guys just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it happened to you, and I guess it happens to everybody. But disappointing to end up in ninth, having run into him.
Yeah, I was just trying to keep up with Heath, really, and try and set up for a bit of a fight with him. Not actually trying to pass him towards the end, but like I said, you can't do much about it. He spun and I went into him.
I was watching the replay on that. It looks like he's having a bit of a battle with Schwatter, and might have just lost a bit of front end downforce and hit the marbles, which caused the spin. But yeah, unfortunately for you, mate, it's one of those wrong place, wrong time incidents after what was a really strong race one. So we're singing your praises after race one. A little bit annoying for you to not get the result you deserved in race two.
Well, after the first two rounds, it was good to finally actually be doing well in the car, because both of the first two rounds I spun out of both two races, and I finally wound my aggression back a bit, and that happened. So,
are you and Greg sharing setups at all? Because it looks like Greg seems to have a handle on how to set up the car at the moment.
I'm figuring it out as I go along and working pretty well, but he's just a much steadier driver and seems to be easier on the tyres, because you saw in race one after about 10 laps was when the gap really started to stretch a lot more. The first 10 he was still getting out by a tenth or two on me, but yeah, after 10 laps I just didn't have enough tyre in comparison to what he had managed to save.
I've raced Greg in that situation a few times, and it's a little bit hard to keep up with him after 10-20 laps.
He just does not slide under him, whereas I'm much more aggressive even when I wound it back a bit like I did tonight. So no matter what, I'm going through a lot more tyre than most people generally do. So.
Well, speaking of sliding, Lewis Wedding has joined us here for a little post-race interview as well. And Lewis, at that last turn, Clark Curve, we spoke about it all night. A number of people had trouble there, and you fell foul of it as well, unfortunately, on the opening lap, and it put you right to the back of the field. All on your own, I take it? Just a little bit too happy on the loud pedal, or did you just get on the marbles? Talk us through what happened.
I think what's happened, I've just grabbed too much brake while being a little bit sideways, and it's just the front right tyre has just pulled it around, which is weird because in practice I'd lock up and stuff through there and didn't have an issue, and then obviously first lap of the race after I get pole position and a great start, it goes around, but oh well. Happens.
We also noticed on the broadcast you were locking that inside front right tyre into a couple of the turns as well, namely into the hairpin at turn number 2 a couple of times, which sent you a little bit deep. So, and from what we heard on the pit radio as well, your tyres were being used from your qualifying session as well. So obviously they'd already had a fair bit of wear on them, which couldn't have helped your cause either.
Yeah, I think they're at 93%. I think I started the race on, so they weren't completely warm, but it certainly didn't help. But I don't think the locking was too bad an issue actually. Into turn 2 anyway, it carrying the speed through there and sort of locking up wide sort of helped me carry speed and actually go a little bit quicker through there. So I don't think it's too big of an issue there. It was obviously just an issue at that last turn where I had another issue later on in the race.
Well, both races having been run and won tonight, we're halfway through the season. So having a look forward to the calendar here on your screen, the next round of Formula 3 action takes place from the iconic Laguna Seca circuit in California on Sunday the 20th of May. So that's the same day, ironically, that we will be running the ARW 6 hour, which you saw on the advertising during the broadcast. And next action up in the AMS Australia series of events is Supercars from Barbagallo Raceway this coming Thursday, 10th of May. This is what I'm looking forward to in particular. And then on Mother's Day evening, the GT3 Round 4 from Magny-Cours, another circuit we don't see very much of nowadays.
What I'm looking for.
Yes. Commentary team, closing thoughts after tonight's race. We are halfway through the season, and I've gone with the Professor to take the title, and a couple of you have gone with Heath, and some of you have gone with Lewis. Do you want to change those predictions at all?
I'm happy with my prediction. It's just an interesting tidbit to finish up from me. Every round so far has only been won by one person. First round was Heath, second round was Wedding, third round has been Nangle. So will that trend continue? Is it just the tracks that are sort of certain people are better at, or are we going to have a bit more mix up in the following round?
Just to add on to that point, it's 2 wins apiece, 3 pole positions apiece, and 1 fastest lap apiece for Heath Dixon and Lewis Wedding. But Greg Nangle has 3 of the fastest laps, so read into that what you will, but Nangle seems to be coming good right when it counts.
Nangle seems to really have his head wrapped around this car and how to set up this car at the moment. So I said that Heath was every chance to hold on, but I'm probably starting to swing the way of the Professor right now. Just because, he seems to, as Matt said, look after the tyre better than anyone right now. Going to Laguna, that's going to be an absolute tyre shredder. So him being the best at looking after his tyres right now, he's in the best position to capitalise on that come Laguna Seca.
Well, on that note, we will see you in approximately 2 more weeks for round 4 of Formula 3 action from Laguna Seca. I've been Nether. The commentary team on behalf of ARW and Short Shift Podcast has been Bagsy and Brock Harvey. And until next time, please drive safely. We'll see you then.